Welcome to Horticulture Happy Hour. My name is Wayne Hobbs, and I'm the host for this weekly webinar series. I work for the University of Florida IFAS Extension Office in Clay County, where I'm the Environmental Horticulture Agent and Interim County Extension Director. And what I do is basically I teach people about gardening. I teach people about how to properly landscape using Florida-friendly landscaping principles, how to get the most out of their garden when it comes to edibles. And this is kind of a culmination video. The last three, we're going to keep going with the series all the way through the fall. But they were going to kind of talk about mocktails, how to basically create them, and then also use some of those ingredients that we've already discussed in the class, such as mint, Yaupon Holly Tea, as well as limes. So to get started with mocktails, basically what you do have here is an opportunity to get really creative and have some fun with some different types of beverages. It can be really easy to accidentally make, for me, to make limeades or lemonades without thinking, or different types of flavored teas. So we're going to try to get away from that a little bit with what we're doing here today. So we're going to kind of break down what goes into a mocktail, what types of ingredients we can use, a little bit on garnishing, and go from there. So first of all, with a mocktail, basically you kind of structure it the same way you would other types of drinks, where the way I like to refer back to when you're first getting started is an old rhyme. It goes one of sour, two of sweet, three of strong, and four of weak. With mocktails, we don't get to use the strong, so we're going to have to add in some different things to make that a little bit different. But usually what I like to do to say if you're going to start off with something, it is fun to experiment with. Mocktail making is a lot like baking those. So if you can find good recipes online, follow those and then adjust based upon your own personal taste. So we're going to start off with today is the sour. So to do that, we are using limes. So I might adjust this down just a little bit so I can get a little more view of what I'm doing down here. So I'm going to take a lime. Basically, we are going to slice it horizontally. I want to keep completely out of frame when I'm doing this. But slice it horizontally. Set up with your nice half here. I'm going to go ahead and juice this down into a juice glass. Using my hand juicer, I'll bring out the big fun juicer another day. So here, squeeze down. And usually out of a lime, I think I mentioned this in the last video, so we get around hopefully 1 ounce of juice out of this. Sometimes you get less depending on the age of the lime, where you get it from. These are not directly from my garden because our lime tree is not producing just yet. So just getting some juice out of these. Purchased locally though. So let's see what we got in here. For finished juicing, did notice I didn't bear down on this. I talked about that in the last video where if you really bear down on the juicer, you end up getting a lot of oils and zest into the drink, which you don't want. So for this this little mocktail we're going to start off with, I haven't really named it yet. I'm playing with some different names off the Yaupon tea, but I'm going to start off with doing about a ½ ounce. So we're going to take our jigger here. This is a ½ ounce side, and had a rougher lime. So there we go. We did not even get a ½ ounce of juice out of that lime. So we're going to go ahead and cut again, keeping my thumbs away from the knife. Try again. And it's been kind of hit or miss with this batch of limes. I had some that I juiced this weekend, got full 1 ounce out of a few of them, and then other ones have been a little more sparse. I'll juice one more, at least half, to finish off. And just like anything, if you're using ingredients, everything out here has been properly washed beforehand, brought that inside, washed everything to make sure that we didn't have any problems there. So now I'm right at the top for a ½ ounce. So we're going to add a ½ ounce of lime. Now we're going to move on to sweet. So I'm going to move this back up for this part. It's fighting me. Yeah. So that should do it. Okay. So for sweet, what we're going to use is syrup. So this syrup is actually where my mint's going to come in today. With mint, there's different ways you can use it. Like I mentioned, you can muddle it using a muddler to really break out some of those oils and use it fresh. But what I actually did over the weekend was I made up some mint syrup. So what this is, it's 1-to-1 simple syrup. So it is sugar and water at equal weights. I actually do have a kitchen scale and weigh them to make sure they're accurate. If you like things a little bit sweeter, you can up the sugar content here. But basically, I mixed them 1-to-1, heated it lightly on a stove. Do not take it to boiling because you will lose moisture that way. And stir it until the sugar was dissolved. Turn it off the heat. Throw in some fresh mint leaves that were a little bit agitated to break up the leaves a little bit. And just let those sit inside that water and infuse into that sugar. So you do get a mint flavor out of this, but it's more shelf stable. This should stay in my refrigerator for about a month. So anything I want with mint flavor, I can add this in. Does well in different types of teas, things like that. I've actually done snow cones for kids with this, and it's been fun. So for this, we're going to start with equal parts. So we use ½ ounce of lime juice. And I will put a recipe card at the end down in the comments. So I'm going to do equal parts. I'm going to do about a half ounce of our mint syrup into there. So that's going to add in our sweet. Now, like I said, we don't get any strong, but we do get to add in some weak. And the weak here is for dilution. So for dilution here, we are going to use that Yaupon tea. So this was fresh brewed, chilled, put in this bottle just so it was easier to pour. And so to dilute this down right now, this is probably pretty sweet, pretty acidic. And it's going to need a decent amount of dilution down to get it right. So I'm going to go ahead and add in, I'm going to add in 3 ounces of this. So on this larger jigger, I'm going to add in 3 ounces total of Yaupon tea into our mixing tin. So it's 2 ounces on one side, 1 ounce on the other. So there we go. Put that off to the side. So now we pretty much have most of our ingredients here. We have our mint syrup, we have our tea, we have our lime. So it's kind of a nice summertime refreshing tea. Now, to actually mix this, we are going to need to chill this down some. So what we're going to use is some ice. Now, for my initial chilling here, I'm going to just use some regular ice cubes made at home. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a few in, not too many. And unfortunately, probably one of your most favorite parts of actually making drinks is shaking. With mocktails, a lot of times I don't like to shake. The reason is because you are diluting things down with the ice. Your ice is there to chill and dilute. So if you're using a lot of ice and shaking it a lot, you're going to dilute down your drink a lot. And with a mocktail, sometimes you don't want to do that. So I'm just going to give this a stir. I'm basically just using a plastic swizzle stick here. Fun fact is a swizzle stick is actually a specific type of a stem of a plant from the Caribbean. I'd like to do a class on that at some point if I ever find a good amount of those to use. But basically to stir this down, makes our drink. And then from here, we can think about how we want to actually present this. So I'm going to do this in a couple of different ways to showcase some different options here. Because we are now mixed. We have our sweet, our sour, our dilution down with the tea, and then we've now chilled it. So what I'm going to do for some different options, I am going to go ahead and show one over some ice. Now, I'm going to go ahead and crush some ice. Different types of ice will melt different times. So crushed ice, what you'll end up with, so different types of ice will melt differently. Crushed ice melts quicker, but it does look kind of cool when you're pouring over it. Ice is sticking to the bottom of my ice bucket. Plus, I'll show this too. So for ice crushers, I don't have an electric one. If you do have a pebble ice machine, that's fun too. What I'm actually using is an Art Deco. I believe this is from the 40s. It's a kind of an Art Deco rocket ship Dazzy ice crusher. This is mechanical. Been around for a while. I have cleaned it really well. Still kind of looking. I've got a couple of cracks on the base. I'd love to find a replacement for that. But it just hangs out here on the side of my bar, and then I can take it off and clean it whenever I need to. So I've got a lot of shaved ice. I'm going to use this footed Pilsner type glass for this ice. Kind of fill up. Just see if this looks a little bit nicer and cleaner than those ice cubes. And then now I'm going to go ahead and pour the cocktail. I'm actually going to strain out this cubed ice so it doesn't look too rough in the glass. Okay. That's not too bad. Normally I'd want to make sure to get up to the top, so I would top it off a little more crushed ice. I just don't want to take up any more time just crushing ice. So of this, we could then decide how we want to actually garnish this. One option that's always great is mint. Unfortunately, I forgot to grab mint from work before I got home, and my mint plant has a little bit of damping off going on because of how wet it was, and now it's getting cooler, so it should be responding, but this is all that I could get that was good looking. So you could try a little bit of mint like this. Not going to look that great, but if you have a bigger piece of mint, agitate it, put it in there, and that's actually really nice for this drink because then someone could actually have to put their nose down and get in that mint and get a little extra flavor that the syrup's not giving them. Use a nice straw for this. But I did want to get creative and kind of emphasize something we're going to use next class. Next class, our plant we're going to take a look at is hibiscus, specifically sorrels. This is from a hibiscus plant in my garden. Washed this leaf off, but hibiscus are edible. So you can do different things with different things from your garden. So you could go ahead and kind of place a leaf like in there to get a little bit of height. Honestly, garnishing is fun because if you have any experience with flower arranging, it can be fun. You can get a little more creative. Here's a nice little mallow flower too. Now, that's even better to me if I were to have actually hibiscus in this drink, but next week we'll be talking about hibiscus, how to implore it, how to deploy it, and then go through how to use that sorrel. So that's one way to look at this. Different ways to present it as a mocktail, make it a little bit extra than just a flavored tea. Now, the other option I was going to bring up with this is you could serve this in a different way. I'm going to put all this back up. Is something like a mocktail is also good to serve as a little up drink, so you could use a coupe. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this back into our mixing tin. Now it's gotten diluted down a little bit more from sitting, but I'm going to go ahead and strain this over into the coupe. I can fit all of it in there. So you can have a nice up drink that looks a little more classy and different than just drinking out of a straw. Other ways to kind of spice up a mocktail we'll talk about later. You can add more herbs in, so I like using things like allspice, cinnamon, things that give a little more of those stronger herbal flavors into the mocktail. You can also add in things like seltzer water. It really does help out, especially on a taller drink where it's diluted down. That carbonation does help. And if I was going to garnish something like this, like an up drink, you don't want to go over the top with these usually, but a small little bit of that mint to kind of symbolize what's in there can be actually floated. So we floated right on top of that drink on the edge. I'll show a picture of that. See if I can adjust that down a little bit to get a better view. But it's some reason wanted to stay towards the back. But little mint floating on top looks better in person. I'll try to get a picture of it to post with the image. But so overall, you do have a nice. That's kind of the basics of working with mocktails. Experiment, try different ingredients, try different recipes, have fun with it. Find what you like. Personally, mint's not one of my favorites. If I was going to make this on my own, I'd probably swap out syrups for things like passion fruit, honey. I've done some loquat syrups that have been great, and we'll cover more of those as we go through the class. So once again, if you have any questions about Horticulture Happy Hour, anything with gardening, feel free to ask me. Remember that all this is part of like Florida-friendly landscaping. We have some great resources on how you can make your yard more sustainable and your garden more sustainable, while also including a lot of fun edibles. Big things of edible gardening, I always say, is find those things that are more unique, things you want to try out in your garden, add them in, making sure you're using right plant, right place, you're giving them all their proper care from Florida-friendly landscaping. And then before you use anything, make sure you are properly washing it, keep that food safety in mind and things like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help, and I hope you enjoyed this video in the Horticulture Happy Hour series. Thank you.